Hi there, I'm Shelly, Confident Nutrition Mindset Coach and Dietitian. And today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about how to not get fooled by some of these fad diets that come out every year. And there are just certain things like red flags to look for. So I wanted to tell you about those because I want you to be prepared when these come up, because they will come up, because they come up every year in different forms. And I want to make sure that you are able to save your money on things that matter to you. Fad diets take away a lot of our money. They keep us focused on only the food that we eat rather than or our health, like trying to focus so much on that we're not living our lives. And they have us make unnecessary, even harmful changes to our lives. So I really want to make sure that you're not falling into this, and that I equip you with some things that can help kind of sort through the muddiness of some of these diets and some of the marketing behind the diets that are coming out. So this is all around trying to give you a life that's bigger than what you eat, because what we eat is just a small part of our actual life, and I want to be able to experience all of my life, and I want you to be able to experience all of your life. So this will help you with that. And so I'm going to go through a little bit of those signs, those red flags of a fad diet. Fad diets are really just a diet that becomes really popular, a way of eating that becomes really popular. And typically they only last, like the popularity of these things only lasts a little while, but the versions of them keep coming up in just different names or a little bit different form. So really having a basis checklist, like kind of like a generic checklist, is much better than if I were to tell you like this is a fad diet, this fad diet, the specific names of things. So I'm just going to go through the generics and give you those tools to sort it out yourself. If you do need help with these, like feel free to put in the comments one that you're thinking about, and we can kind of work through it together. But in general, one of the biggest things is if there is no work or time needed on your part to get the results or the outcome, that's a huge red flag, because changes in our lives take time and they take effort. Things just don't generally happen, right? In terms of like a lifestyle choice. It's not going to be in some instant fix or some miracle. If you do see that kind of language or that kind of promise that you don't have to work at all, you just have to do this one thing every day, it's so simple, it's probably too good to be true. If there's a secret, a hidden thing like a trick or a little known fact, those kinds of things are pretty much red flags. When you're thinking about it, like if somebody hasn't, if it's the first time you've heard about it, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing instantly, right? It doesn't mean it's necessarily a fad diet, but it might be worth looking into. And basically that's what these are. This is just a checklist to tell you like, oh, this is a red flag. It doesn't mean that necessarily it's a bad thing to avoid. It just means that it needs more you need more information. You need to dig into it a little bit more to really feel confident that you're giving your money and your time and your energy and your attention to something that's going to help you and not harm you. If those are like secrets or hidden or little known tricks, a lot of times they'll be, the person holding that secret is going to charge you for it, right? Is going to tell you that, well, this is a hidden thing that nobody knows except for them. Oh, how did they figure it out, right? And it could be a new discovery of something. So like I said, it could be, you might want to look into it, but typically in terms of marketing, when those keywords are there, it's a kind of a red flag. If there's like a magical formula, magic ingredient, magic product, something that you have to go buy specifically, if there's only a certain combination or order that you can eat things in, or certain times of the day that you can eat, all of those kinds of things where it's really around you have to follow this set formula, or you have to buy a certain product or eat a specific kind of food, like a specific version of an apple versus all the other apples, just for example, if there's any of these kinds of things, that is a really big red flag as well. Nutrition doesn't rely on just one piece or just one food that you eat or just one specific way of eating. Healthy eating and nutrition are much broader than that, and what we eat balances out over time. So overall, if there's entire groups of foods eliminated, if there are specific foods that are villainized, those are also big red flags. If there are lists of good and bad foods, or eat this and not that, or substitute all these foods when you think about it with this like crunchy kale chip or whatever it is, that you want to think about those kinds of things too. Intuitive eating says there are no good and bad foods. A lot of nutrition professionals say there are no good and bad foods. Like I said, it's a pattern over time. It's what we eat overall that matters. It's not good or bad. It's not like eat this or you will die. Don't eat this or you will die. That's typically what the fear is, right? If it's all based around fear, there's a lot of marketing tactics that tell you that you need to say, speak to the fear and then basically manipulate people into buying things or manipulate them into this story. If you're seeing a lot of that language in the marketing of some of these diets or some of the ways to eat or a book that you're seeing, you'll want to think about what kind of fear is this based on. Is this like a fear of death? Is this a fear of losing your the way of your living? Like, oh, did you know that this banana that you're eating can actually be deadly for you, and then now you're all afraid of any food because who knows what's next and might be deadly, right? That there's a lot of these, a lot of diets are based on this fear, and you can pretty much fill in the blanks like blank will kill you, harm you, become whatever, and it becomes this huge thing, and suddenly we're so stressed about eating anything or eating in the wrong way or eating the wrong foods, and eating itself becomes a thing that we don't even enjoy anymore. And that's so sad, right? Because like I said, it is part of our lives, and we don't want it to be the only thing in our lives, but we also want to be able to enjoy it when we are when we are in that moment of eating, when we are thinking about eating. We want to be able to enjoy those moments, not just ignore them or be so stressed that we can't actually enjoy them and be in that moment present. If there's a couple other things, not necessarily about the diet itself, but about the people promoting it. So if there's no credentials to these people, if they don't have any expertise, if they don't have an organization or accrediting body that is keeping track of them and has oversight on what they're saying and keeping up their credentials and things like that, that might be a red flag. Again, it depends on what they're claiming to say and what they're claiming to be able to do. If there is no research evidence about this diet or way of eating, you might want to look into that a little bit more. There's sometimes there are things like sponsored studies. So one big thing is, where's the money? And if you ask that question, you can pretty much figure out whether it's a fad diet or something that might be a little bit more worth your time and effort. Because again, things that actually produce change will take time and effort. So if you ask yourself, where's that money? Then you can generally figure out who is sponsoring it, who is selling it, whether you need to buy a particular product or not. If their research studies were sponsored, typically they're going to be positive, right? So in research, there's different funding because research is expensive. Sometimes they're funded by an organization that is independent. Sometimes they're funded by a big group of people or organizations. Sometimes they're funded by one particular company. And there has been research on the research that has been funded by particular companies, and what tends to happen is that those companies will fund based on the idea that they own that research, and they don't have to publish it or share it if they don't want to, meaning it doesn't actually get shared unless it's positive for their brand, right? So you get this huge bias toward only positive studies, and so even then in the research, like, you want to look for sponsors. Who funded that study? Who is the person who is actually making this possible, not just the group that is actually doing the research? Because it might be an independent research group, but the funding for that independent research group might have come from the other company that's benefiting, right? Another thing that you'll want to look for is spokespeople. So spokespeople can be from an organization, can be from a company. You basically on this one, you just want to look for who are they representing. What does that company or organization believe, and what are they trying to do? What are their goals and their values? Some of them are trying to just sell products, right? And some of them are really wanting to give the best health possible. And so sometimes they might do that through selling products or services, and other times they're just going to be organizations that are sharing for like public health. And even within that, there are many ways of getting to health, or many different viewpoints on what healthy is. So when you're thinking about that, if you're concerned about something in particular, like you want a non-diet approach, for example, then you would want to make sure that the company or the organization that you're seeing this information from is in line with the values that you're looking for, right? And as non-diet approaches become more popular, you're going to hear more about it, including intuitive eating and health at every size. So I wanted to kind of address how those are not fad diets. And so I'm just going to walk you through basically the checklist that I just gave you, so that you can see how intuitive eating is not a fad diet. So one of the signs was there's no work or time needed. So intuitive eating definitely takes time. It takes time to relearn how to trust your body, to maybe reestablish those signals that you need to be able to trust your body, that we all had at one point, that we lose over time. It does take time to do the work. It does take work. So that's definitely one of those things. It's not a secret. It's not hidden. It's not little known. It's actually something that we were all born with to start with, and we lose over time, over the course of our lives, of the interactions, the different messages that come from different places. Those can override our signals, and we learn to do other things that aren't as beneficial for us versus the things that we were born knowing how to do. So intuitive eating helps bring you back to that place of being able to trust your body to tell you how much, when, and what to eat. And to figure out when something is overriding that, what do you do then, right? There's no magic formula. There's no special ingredients or special product. Like I said, it's something that we were all born with. Innately, we know how to do with it. It's not like some special, wand, or like a special thing that you have to smear on your forehead and soak your feet in. It's just something that you learn and that you practice over time, and that you continue to practice for the rest of your life. And there are people who can help you get there, and there are different ways and techniques and exercises that can help you practice these things and can give you the tools that you need to do this this way of eating and changing that relationship with your food in your body, and bringing it back to a normal, healthy relationship with food. But it's not like a magic, secret, proprietary thing. There are many people who teach intuitive eating, and there are tons of resources for you, both free and paid. It doesn't eliminate entire groups of food. It doesn't villainize foods. There's no good or bad foods. I think I mentioned that earlier. Credentialed people who are supporters of intuitive eating and health at every size are medical professionals, are dietitians like me. There's psychologists, eating disorder specialists, nurses. There's all kinds of different professions who have credentials, who have they're called accrediting bodies, who are responsible for making sure that their licenses and practices and their ethics are all in line, that they're keeping up with the requirements and all of that. It's not just something that we made up out of our heads. It's something that is based in research. There's a growing, what's called a body of evidence. It means that there's an increasing number of research studies on intuitive eating and health at every size. We actually know that people who eat intuitively or have more of these intuitive eating techniques actually eat closer in line with the dietary guidelines than people who don't eat intuitively. So people who actually are trying on purpose and trying to make these dietary guidelines actually don't as much. Intuitive eating helps reduce binging episodes, helps you feel better about your body, and they've been finding a lot of positive things, and I can go more into that in another video. But there is a growing body of evidence, and there's a growing body of evidence against dieting and against the typical ways of restricting foods and thinking about healthy eating, because healthy eating can become a diet in and of itself. And so we really want to make sure that intuitive eating is not mutually exclusive to healthy eating, but that it's not all obsessing about being healthy and never eating a bad food or anything like that. Like, intuitive eating allows you to have a life and then to also enjoy your food fully and seek satisfaction and be healthy, and to find that in a normal, natural pattern that works for you. The money, as I said, there are free things. There's support groups. There's books that you can check out. I think a lot of the major libraries have copies of Intuitive Eating, which is a book by Resch and Tribole. There's several options for like workshops or do-it-yourself, self-paced kind of classes. There are even all the way up to like more expensive options, or working with like a personalized one-on-one coach. Insurance sometimes will cover if you're going to a professional like a doctor or a nurse or somebody else like that who is doing a service that is provided by insurance, like, or approved by insurance, that is actually doing this from an intuitive eating perspective. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, both free and paid. And if you're paying a service provider or an expert, of course you're going to be paying, because you're paying them for their time and their expertise. You're also paying for somebody to help walk you through that process, because it does take time, it does take a lot of work, and sometimes this work can be hard and discouraging. And so sometimes it's really nice to have somebody in your corner, right, that's there supporting you and guiding you, and giving you those tools and techniques, like I said. But there are other ways of doing it. If you didn't want to pay, you could also have a lot of other options that are free. For example, one of the things that I'm offering, that I typically offer, is a free discovery call. And that's to help you get clarity around what is it that you're struggling with, and what are some of those like deeper things that are really happening, and what are some of the basic steps that you can take moving forward, give you that little bit of a plan to see where you're going and what you're doing. And so whether you decide to work with me or not is not the thing. It's to give you a little bit of a glimpse of what it could be like to do intuitive eating, just a step in that right direction, right? To go a little bit maybe away from something that you've been doing your whole life, or a certain way of thinking about it, and giving you other options. If you are interested in that, you can feel free to reach out to me. I will put a link in the comments in the description for you. If you don't want to do that, that's fine too. I have other free resources. There are other people who have free resources. Like I said, you don't have to work with somebody in order to do intuitive eating, but I just wanted to let you know that that was available in case you did. So in general, recap, I'm going to just go through really fast on that checklist again. Signs of a fad diet: no work or time needed. If there's secret, hidden, or little known tricks, magic formulas, ingredients, or products, entire groups of food eliminated, villainized, or in good or bad lists. If people don't have credentials, if there's no research behind it, if it's sponsored, if you only have to buy certain products, if the research is sponsored, and then looking into that, who is being the spokesperson for this, and where are they coming from, who are they representing. And then intuitive eating is not a fad diet because of these. And basically, it's the opposite of all of this stuff. And even though as it becomes more popular, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's also a fad diet. It just means that people are beginning to know more about it and see the research behind it, and see that this is another option that is possible. So if you do want to reach out, feel free to reach out. I'll share those links. If you have a question about what might be a fad diet or not, like you want to have a specific thing that you want to share about, feel free to reach out for that as well. I'm happy to answer your questions about helping you work through what might be a fad diet or not. And again, whether you work with me or not, I hope that you have a very good year and a very good day. And please tune in next week. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about healthy eating and being free from the self-talk in your head, and what that might look like in some ways to get around that self-talk, or to change that self-talk. So again, I'm Shelly, wishing you a very happy life and the chance to live freely and fully. Until next week.